Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker, who grew up in the same area as Congressman Ryan. He joins us now from Milwaukee. Governor, it's good to see you.
Good to be with you guys. It's a great day for Wisconsin, but I think an even greater day for America because Paul Ryan will be a great vice president.
You know, we worry in the media, and we're going to always point out the negatives if we can in any way possible, Governor. I'm going to do that right now. You tried to do what I would call, some of the things you did were almost incremental in taking away certain benefits that public employees had. I mean, I think even after a lot of the things you did, they still pay less into their pension plan than private employees. They still pay less for health care than private employees. And look what happened to you when you tried to take something away and when you told the truth. You had to go, the entire left galvanized around the country and had demonstrations, and I don't know what, I shudder to think at what you had to go through after all that. Same thing's going to happen here when you try to do something like that.
You're absolutely right, but the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey would say, all that happened, and then what happened on June 5th? We had an election. More people turned out than 2 years ago. I got a higher percentage than 2 years ago. I got more votes than 2 years ago. As Paul Ryan said repeatedly when I was running, courage was on the ballot, and I think it proved that courageous leadership, not just here in Wisconsin, but having people like Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan who are willing to tell the voters the truth, willing to tell them what they're going to do to take on both the economic and the fiscal crisis will make a difference. And so you're right, yeah, there'll be pushback. We saw it here clearly. But I think that's what voters expect. They want us to think more about the next generation than just the next election.
Yeah, that's what we've been talking about all morning, and that's what you saw Paul Ryan saying in his speech, and then on 60 Minutes, that voters want to be told the truth. But you know, you got at the same time, both parties demagogue the truth, so you need to find the truth, and a lot of times people aren't following it close enough to know where the truth is, and it can get distorted and dissembled, and that's why I'm saying there's a lot between now and November. To where it's unclear how this finally went. This was a bold pick, but a pick with, as Andrew's pointed out, with a lot of risk for people in the middle, for independents.
Oh, it is, but I think in Wisconsin, you look at Paul Ryan, great example. People forget this because he's very well known, but Paul Ryan is in the 1st Congressional District. It's the area where I grew up. I grew up in a small town about 15, 20 miles down the road from Paul, where he was in Janesville. Janesville is a blue-collar, union working town, and he wins consistently in that district. It is one of the most competitive congressional districts in America. And for years now, not just the last year or two, but for years, he's not only talked about it, he's run on his roadmap for America. And even in a district that's filled with urban, rural, and suburban voters, that's almost evenly split between Republican and Democrat.
He got reelected.
Every year he's been up for re-election. He got more than 60% because people want the truth. They want it in the Midwest.
The president won there.
States like Wisconsin.
Right. The president won his district handily, and Ryan still got elected in the same year with above 60%, which is, and you're in it's like the bluest of blue states. I don't know how you're still sitting. Of course, you've had to be elected twice
in the same term, but I think it was a good example that if you do stick your neck out. In our case, we couldn't win without Republicans, with just Republicans. We had to have independents and even some discerning Democrats. I think that's who Paul Ryan appeals to. He certainly energizes the base because he's bold, but by the same token, he appeals to swing voters because he's got a message of truth. He's got a message that I think most voters in this country are ready for. They want people to stand up and be willing to make the tough decision. What you're going to see, though, and you saw it in the last 2 days, you see a couple things. One, first and foremost, Mitt Romney is going to be the one as president who drives the budget, who drives the decisions. Paul Ryan is going to be an ally in moving it forward, but it's going to be the Ryan plan. It's going to be the Romney plan, and he's got a plan to move our country forward. But secondly, even in the things that they pointed out about the Ryan budget plan, the misstatements, you see the left who just doesn't want to talk about the president's record because it is a failed record, instead trying to distort it. Even under Paul Ryan's plan, if you're a senior, if you're a retiree or near retirement, you're not going to be touched by anything he's talked about. That's the distortion out there. They're trying to scare people, like my parents, like my aunt and uncle, other people out there. They're not going to be touched by this. Anyone over the age of 55 wouldn't be touched, and that's just under Paul Ryan's plan as introduced. Mitt Romney's got a plan to protect the middle class, to protect and preserve Medicare. He's got a plan to move this country forward. It's a plan that can actually get passed, unlike the plans of this president that have failed even in his own controlled United States Senate, controlled by his own party. That's the difference. Paul Ryan, Mitt Romney will get things done.
Good morning, Governor. This is George P. Bush. I want to thank you for your leadership in the great state of Wisconsin. I think we have to go back to Reagan to find a Republican presidential candidate that won the state of Wisconsin. I think in light of your election and the recall, you have a better viewpoint in terms of a boots-on-the-ground perspective on Wisconsin. Do you think this ticket and Paul Ryan's addition could very well put Wisconsin in the red column?
Absolutely. In fact, after my election in June, I said at that point, even without Paul on the ticket, that I thought Mitt Romney had a chance. The last time was 1984, but I thought in our election when it showed that people were willing to listen to leaders who were willing to be bold. I think Governor Romney has shown that in the private sector, taking over the Olympics and as governor. But now, George, more than ever, I think with Paul Ryan on the ticket, people forget, as I mentioned, Paul's district is very, very competitive. He eats into vote totals in places like Rock County and Kenosha County, both working-class, blue-collar communities in Janesville and Kenosha, where President Obama did very well 4 years. That alone, in a state where, when your uncle was up in 2000 and 2004, we were the closest blue state in America. 2.5 million votes cast and just a couple thousand decided it. Paul Ryan being on the ticket could make that difference in Wisconsin, which could make the difference in the presidency.
Governor, Nate Silver put together a column over the weekend. He's the fellow who does a lot of the numbers and crunches the stats and says that Paul Ryan is one of the most extreme, if I think he said the most extreme person to ever be put on the ticket in terms of being either extreme on the conservative end or, frankly, even extreme on the liberal end. Do you buy that?
No, I think in the end, again, before Paul was elected, for 2 terms, there was a Republican congressman who had very similar views who got elected by under 51% in both of those elections, even after the 94 and the 96 elections, even after the contract with America. Paul Ryan at age 28 was elected, or 27 actually when he was elected, 28 when he took office, was elected essentially on the same ideas with 57% of the vote, and every year thereafter he's won with more than 60% of the vote. I think that what people want more than anything isn't just Republican or Democrat leadership. They just want leadership. That's what Mitt Romney and now Paul Ryan bring to the ticket. That's what's been horribly lacking under Barack Obama and Joe Biden. There is no leadership. They defer to the Congress. They don't get things done. I think people 4 years ago who thought they were getting Bill Clinton and Barack Obama have been horribly disappointed, and they need a new leader, and that's what Romney brings, and that's what Ryan brings.
Governor Walker, thanks. We appreciate it. Up next, can Paul Ryan